What's going on, boxing fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. And this is going to be topping off a new series that I've been having. If you're a UFC fan, you're an MMA fan, I've already started my first video in terms of this series for you UFC fans. So head over to that being the Hamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis matchup that I have headed off for that UFC 319 card. But for this, obviously, you have picked this video for Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez. This is not a prediction video. I will make my prediction video very, very soon. You guys stay tuned. This is what does it mean? Or what does it mean for their legacy? In terms of their status, their resume, their career, the people that they've already fought so far, what a win would mean for them, where it would propel them in their careers moving on forward, and how everything would probably shape up after the fact, after the aftermath of either of these two fighters coming out on top in this victory. Obviously, we're talking about one of the biggest boxing headline matchups to be able to make in quite some time. Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. And again, I've explained it already beforehand. What does it mean for their career? Obviously, a pictured above, we have our guy, Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is honestly, pound for pound, one of the best boxers of all time in terms of generation, in terms of what you want to be able to talk about, and other fighters in their great generation that they've been in the 140-pound division, in the 147-pound division, that is very prestigious, with that being the welterweight division in boxing. There's quite a few that have done it, like Terence Crawford, and the talent and the skill set and everything has been shown on there. The first person to ever get a win over a highly touted prospect like Yuriorkis Gamboa, Victor Postol, somebody that HBO propped up very heavily as a major player, Julius Ndongo, him crowning him against an undefeated fighter from Africa, and him getting the undisputed crown in the 140-pound division, that being the junior welterweight division. Moving on up to the welterweight division and getting a knockout against a guy that was undefeated and one of the more famous led brothers in Jose Benavidez Jr. And the real big thing about Terence Crawford and his resume, if we may want to be able to go down through it, is that he has names on his resume but hasn't got names on his resume in terms of his prime. I mean, he got an Amir Khan knockout, but that's after the fact. He got knocked out already by Canelo, Danny Garcia. He had the fight with Marcus Maidana. He got down a whole bunch a few times. There was a first-time fighter. Forgetting the name off of him. He's slipping my mind as of right now, but he got knocked out of him before. Kell Brook, after he got dominated by Triple G and Errol Spence Jr. Sean Porter, after he had the losses to Keith Thurman and Errol Spence Jr., I mean, yeah, they're good names. They're great boxers. They're being the historians. They'll be the better names of boxing in terms of their generation and time compared to a guy like Terence Crawford. But again, Terence Crawford has never beaten these guys in their actual prime, in their actual best type of ways to be able to beat these guys. But then again, he did beat them in great fashion and pretty easily and took care of business. But nonetheless, I mean, these guys are still names. Mean Machine Kavalauskas, if I'm butchering his name, I'm butchering his name. But I know that was another prospect that I believe was undefeated or probably had like one loss on his resume, but was a very close and competitive fight with Terence Crawford. And obviously the last matchup for Terence Crawford, him having the breakout performance that he had against Errol Spence Jr., where everybody thought that fight, even myself included, that was going to be a 50-50 fight, seen down the draw. Both of these guys damn near in their prime, even though Errol Spence is not looking or like having the same type of performances that he was, after the accident. He still was looking like Errol Spence Jr. in there. And after that loss, he hasn't been returned into the ring. So that means it shows so much, and especially with that, also unifying and undisputed, him being champion in a, again, prestigious division, such as a welterweight division, that being Terence Crawford. him being a two-time undisputed champion, then him moving up to 154 and going against Idra Madrimov, another prospect, undefeated, looking to be on a tear and on a roll, and having a very close and competitive fight against him, being a champion as well and getting the decision victory, which it was a close and competitive fight, but I still think clearly he did win that fight over Madrimov. What this would make him if he got this win over Canelo Alvarez after already going through all of Terence Crawford's resume. I mean, the best win in his career. I mean, having names like Errol Spence, it's absolutely amazing. Maybe Madrimov in the future can be able to have, be a win that something can be had some fruits for their labor. Later in his career, you look back at it and it's like, damn, he beat Madrimov. The first loss ever from Madrimov was Terence Crawford. After he beat Postol and Gamboa, they pretty much turned into journeymen or guys to be able to match up against other guys that were younger or bigger names. Same thing as Benavidez Jr. Really, for Terence Crawford to get this win, if he does and is able to get a win over Canelo Alvarez, and if he does it in spectacular fashion, the way that he did against Errol Spence Jr., hands down is one of the best boxers ever, bar none. Forget the pound for pound list. Forget everything and anything that you want to be able to think of. While Canelo Alvarez, in terms of skill set and skills and talent, is not up to what Terence Crawford is, but is close in comparison and is the bigger man, and which is a bigger feat to be able to get over, that Terence Crawford is able to get a win over a guy like that, like a huge name like a Canelo Alvarez, who may, albeit, is kind of in the same boat, not really, like an Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Sean Porter. These guys they have decent names, but they're not really in their prime. I don't think Canelo is in his prime as of right now, but still having a win over a guy like Canelo, which only a couple actually, that hierarchy in terms of name, that they are also one of the greatest boxers of all time. Just forget about eras and generations. Only a couple have gotten a couple wins over Canelo Alvarez. So he's not like he's unbeatable, but he damn near is. And looking on paper, and if you're a betting man and Vegas is looking at it, Canelo being the heavy odds-on favorite is a smart, very smart idea. So Terence Crawford, if he does this, that would be, I think, 4 or 5 division champion, 3-time undisputed champion in 3 weight classes, and him not just getting it in 154 or 160 after being in 140 or 147. He jumps all the way up after having a fight in 154 where his power didn't look as amazing as it usually does in the 147 and 140 pound division, and going up to 168 and getting that job done. Legacy defining career, 100%. Not just a win, it being legacy defining, but his career would be solidified as what a lot of people and a lot of historians would consider being one of the greatest boxing careers and boxers of all. He would be in the pantheons of the greatest boxers, bar none. I think there is no discussion about it. You can be able to talk about, it wasn't in his prime, yada, 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 these other things. Maybe he wasn't the best in terms of preparation and all these things. You can't be able to refute it. He will be known and remembered as one of the best boxers ever. And that's what it would mean for Terence Crawford. And now, for the other boxer on the other side of the ring, what would it mean for Canelo Alvarez? And I don't want to be able to be a negative Nancy or a Debbie Downer. It would be a tremendous win, but it wouldn't have the same amount of effect as it would for it being a win for Terence Crawford, which again I've talked about a little bit earlier. Canelo being a heavy odds-on favorite in this one. If you're a betting man, if you're Vegas, if you're looking at the odds, there's a reason why Canelo is and should be obviously favored to be able to win in this matchup. Canelo has an absolutely deep resume. While Crawford is older than Canelo, Canelo has been in way more professional bouts, even at a younger age, compared to Terrence Crawford. So, in terms of wear and tear of where these guys are, they're similar. Not in terms of maybe of wars, because I don't think Terrence Crawford has been in a lot of wars. The Gamboa fight was pretty much back and forth, and Mean Machine gave him some issues. Madrimov gave him some issues, but not in terms of severe type of punishment that Canelo has been in his career. I mean, beating names, and he's been in there for quite some time. Shane Mosley, over the hill and over the prime name. Austin Trout, who is a tricky southpaw. Landy Lara, who in that one was a very close and competitive fight. Lara has been robbed and has been on a few ends of tremendous fights as well, and he's also a great champion in his own name. Miguel Cotto, a guy over the prime and over the hill as well, but was streaking and looking brand new with Freddie Roach under his realm. Amir Khan making that jump up to 160 and getting a few rounds off of Canelo and making him look pretty slow out there, but eventually getting one of the highlight KOs of his career. Liam Smith was undefeated before he met up with Canelo Alvarez, and he put him away with a body shot. The trilogy with Triple G, absolutely fantastic. First fight, I think, should have went to Triple G. Second one, I could see going to Triple G. I could see going to draw, but neither of the fact, the best fight out of the trilogy between these two guys. Third one, obviously, Canelo won because he was the younger and fresher fighter, where Triple G was seemingly way over the hill after that one. Daniel Jacobs, where he only had a loss against Triple G so far in his career. Beforehand, he even met Canelo, and Canelo had an absolutely, in his prime, chef's kiss, amazing performance against him. Sergey Kovalev to be able to define himself as, I believe, a 4-division champion, where he moved up to light heavyweight and be able to get a crown champion over a guy like Kovalev, who has a name, wasn't in his prime, wasn't the destroyer and crusher that he was in his prime before he met Andre Ward. But still, Sergey Kovalev was still surging and getting knockouts on his resume. Caleb Plant, I think, is a win that is going to be able to look fruitfully back forward when we looked in the past. Terrible way to be able to say that, but anyways, when you look back in the past on a Caleb Plant win, you're going to be like, damn, that dude actually beat Caleb Plant. Pretty decent win. Jermell Charlo was an undisputed champion at 154. He bit the bullet, jumped up to 168, and actually shot for the stars and really was looking like he was in there for a paycheck regardlessly. And as of recently, he's gotten wins over guys like Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga, William Skoll. Not great, tremendous names that are notable that you should really know about, but they're talented, young. They don't have a lot of experience, IQ yet, but they have a lot of talent and power that they're displaying. And Canelo can be able to make a buck off of him. And he's been taking the slower road and slower approach, especially in his older age, in terms of getting real good competition and fierceness in there where he had earlier during his career. And really, for Canelo, the only two losses, like I touched on beforehand. Early, he was a younger pup in his career, where Floyd Mayweather just completely made Canelo look like an absolute fool in there throughout the entirety of that 12th round, where he teached him an absolute lesson of boxing, where he's taken that loss on his shoulders, and he really, really refined his game into where he was beforehand, and is a seasoned, skilled veteran now in his game, knowing the ins and outs and every which way to be able to be real crafty in there to get the job done, regardless by knockout or by usually now getting a decision victory pretty easily over his opponent. And Dimitri Bivol, the other time that he went too close to the sun, where he wanted to be able to get and reclaim more championship belts in the 175 pound division where he was seemingly just jumping up and down, going from 168 back to 175, back to 168, then back to 175, where it seemingly looked like it was wearing on him in his career, and now he's back down to 168 where he's really, honing in on his craft. And I feel like 175 is just way too much of weight in terms of him and that he's carrying on for his career. So he's having his home as of right now in the super middleweight division. And I touched on the base a little bit earlier. What does it mean for his legacy and his career? Adding Terrence Crawford to your resume, regardless of the fact of him being the smaller man and him obviously being the underdog in this one, is still a tremendous name to be able to add to your career. And while, again, Mayweather and Bivol, if you add that to a loss column to Crawford for Canelo, I mean, if those are the only guys that are beating him, then it's like, damn, those are generational great people, great boxers that are somehow, some way getting ends over meats against Canelo, because Canelo has a great chin. He's not going to get wobbled. He's not going to get knocked out. He's not going to get dropped. This has never happened between either of these guys. But if somebody was going to get wobbled, hurt, or dropped in this fight, I'm damn sure betting that it wouldn't be Canelo. If Triple G, not in his prime, but towards the end out of his prime, still kind of in his prime, hitting him with hard, clean shots, having a trilogy between these two guys, going against hard hitters, and now, later in his career, against guys like Munguia, guys like Berlanga, guys moving up against 175, where Bivol is not the greatest power puncher, but is still in an advantage at 175, him being a true 175 pounder, as well as Sergey Kovalev. If guys are hitting him like that and he's not going down, he don't get hurt, he don't get wobbled, he don't get dropped, I'm damn sure betting Terrence Crawford, regardless of his pinpoint accuracy, his timing, all the things that he has in terms of his skill set and talent, which obviously is favored towards him. It's not happening. I don't see it. I really don't see it happening at all. I don't envision that. If I envision Terrence Crawford winning, I would imagine him winning similarly towards like a Mayweather or a Bivol, just beating him over time, over volume, outboxing him, outmoving him, making him look slow in terms of the footwork and getting things done with his jab and getting the combinations flowing and having just enough sting on your punches to be able to keep Canelo honest. Those are the ways that I believe that Canelo will lose. But if he wins, and again, what does it mean for his career, his legacy? Having Terrence Crawford on your resume, even though Terrence Crawford is damn near 40 on terms of being at the end of his career, having him on your resume and still only having Mayweather or Bivol, where you had Mayweather, where you're kind of not a tadpole, but in terms of the talent and the expertise and IQ of having the highest levels of boxing, kind of was a tadpole against Mayweather and got taught a boxing lesson and went way too damn close to the sun against Bivol, where really he's not a true 175 pounder. There's excuses if you want to be able to build in and make it in them for Canelo. There is none if he loses this one for Crawford. And again, Crawford may not be in his prime. He's looking tremendous against Spence, but he's moving up against 154 against Madrimov, and he doesn't have the same type of sting on his punches, and his head movement and his footwork don't look the same because of the weight that he's carrying. It wouldn't be the same type of value. But again, you cannot be able to count out Canelo, because just because you may think that talent and skill-wise, Terrence Crawford is out measuring him, and I may agree with you on that, it's not like Canelo doesn't have any type of skill, any type of IQ, or any type of experience. If anything, IQ and experience for sure, is heading towards the way of Canelo and being the bigger A-side type of fighter, being in the bigger headlights, usually being in the headline or being a lot more, and having, the Mexican Independence Day in terms of September and Cinco de Mayo and all these things, and him being one of the biggest draws in boxing. For him to be able to beat Terrence Crawford and have him on his resume even later in his career, out of his prime, is still a tremendous win, a legacy builder. It's not a legacy maker like Terrence Crawford, but it is a legacy builder for Canelo Alvarez, where he can be able to say, listen, I beat a guy like Crawford who is undefeated, 2-time undisputed in 2 weight divisions, like 3-time weight division champion, one of the best all time in the lower weight classes below me, and I beat him. I got him out of there. Recently, he hasn't been knocking everybody out, but he's been getting knocked down. So Canelo still carries that type of power where you do have to be able to worry about something. So if he gets a knockdown on Terence Crawford, the first ever career for Terence Crawford, that's something that you can be able to put on a checklist for him as well. And especially if he gets a knockout against Terence Crawford, that's a very, very big check mark that you can be able to put on him, knowing that he actually put out one of the best boxers, pound for pound boxers as of right now, and I think one of the best boxers of all time, that being Terence Crawford with him. And again, skill set, talent is just otherworldly. And him, Canelo, being able to match that and level it up and getting a great knockout or some knockdowns, and he just puts a whooping, BTA, belt to ass on Terence Crawford. It's a great performance by Canelo Alvarez, and again, builds on a great legacy that he already has. Like this video if you obviously like this video, because yeah, comment your opinions on what do you think it means for their respective careers, that being Terence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, and subscribe. Because I love you, you love me. Stay here for more, because why not? Please, I need you. Thank you guys again for watching, and peace.